All right.
All right, we're here. Second edition of Arguments in Logic.
Episode 2, where we
And
put the critic in critical thinking.
boom. It was
I'm
like you
Robert
stopped
Sykes.
me. I was trying to get you to say, yeah.
I did it. I did it, everybody. We're going to get this one day. One day,
One
we're going to
day.
have 11 people watch this video, and it's going to be right.
Yeah, we exceeded expectations roughly 2 weeks ago. We actually had 10 people. I was estimating two and a half people,
Yeah.
estimating like point 0.9. So yeah,
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah. I mean, I just watched it like 17 times on 6 different computers. So that might be why we have 10 viewers, but
Oh,
no.
way to say this quiet part out loud that I myself, viewers,
Uh,
non-viewers didn't know.
I'm kidding. I only watched it one time. I actually didn't even watch it one time. I just looked at the intro. I was like, that looks better than I thought.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Real quick, I don't want to belabor it, but with the election results, I've stopped watching the news altogether as a independent voter, slightly depressed. However, I am obviously not a great prognosticator. I will throw, so Trump won. I was saying that this Ann Seltzer lady in Iowa was somehow the trend
she
line.
is no longer the GOAT. That's
No,
for sure.
she's not. She bows her head in shame wherever she goes now. No, but it was
She
a
was way off, as well as a lot of people, I believe.
It was the biggest thing I think from the talking heads. They all kept telling me that Trump has a ceiling of 47%, 47%. It was like the laws of physics. There was no way he could exceed that. And then he not only wins the popular vote, but before I stopped watching the news, I think he hit 51 or more. So obviously it was not the laws of physics. He could get out of
No, I
good
thought it was 53% or something when I looked last time. Is
53. There you go.
53-47.
Yeah.
Is what it and I'm probably wrong because I don't watch the news anymore as well. And I would recommend to anybody watching this video, just don't watch the news. It's just not worth it. It is just not worth it.
Yeah.
Watch our tremendous content and go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button,
If
you
you
know,
want.
if you want, or don't. We
Or
don't really care. This is more of just a passion project than anything else, but
right, right.
it would be interesting to see if anybody cares.
Yes, yes, precisely. And then doing a hard U-turn, not a U-turn, but just a pivot, no segue. Let's hit probably our only real. I'm going to take these glasses off so that I look slightly less uncool. Not that glasses aren't cool.
Glasses are cool, bro. Glasses
Yeah,
make you look smart.
they do, but I don't
So
know.
yeah, here it is. I don't know if you all heard about this, but the reckless mother allows a child to wander dangerous streets. I mean, mothers these days just allowing their children to wander aimlessly. This actually comes from a story that I found that a mother was arrested for her 11-year-old son walking a mile to the Dollar Tree, or the dollar store, whatever it is called. It's just, I could not, I could absolutely just, I just was flabbergasted by this. Being a child of the 80s, and like I was riding my bike to school by myself at 5 years old. We would frequently go to the store to pick things up for our parents, as long as I can remember. And I know this was a different time. But is it really a different time? I mean, is there really this secret underground of just child abduction and child molesters out there just waiting in the wings to see a kid walking by himself? I mean, if you look at the statistics, I mean, it's overwhelmingly more likely for them to have known their abductor than anything else. And this lady was dragged out of her house in handcuffs. Um, I don't know. What do you think, Patrick?
I say lock her up. Enough of these mindlessly incompetent parents, and I'm willing to go a step further. I think that all children who can't mind should just be remanded as wards of the state and put them into some kind of military boarding school. It worked out so well for President-elect Trump. I don't see what could go wrong.
I mean, well, that you make some valid points here, not only do we help, get more military people to fight these wars that we got going on, which we need. Not saying that there's anything wrong with any of the wars we're involved in or have been involved in. I'm just saying like that way we have a good pool of candidates that are well trained and disciplined to do this. You get the kids away from these reckless, just absolutely just terrible mothers. And what's better than being raised by the state?
I don't think anything is really better than that. You're Gen X kind of in the middle. I'm like the end of the Gen X tier, but I believe it was the spiritual father of the baby boomers, Bob Dylan, that said times are changing and we just have to go with the flow. And this is what we have to do now.
Yeah, yeah, I mean clearly because in a let's see, if I look at this article, I believe they said there is only it's a very small town they live in.
Hmm.
Uh, what did it say? Oh, I can't find it. But it was under 30,000 people in this town. I want to say it was even less than that, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's look at this article that I originally posted it from on the Business Insider,
Hmm.
which is weird to have a Business Insider have this kind of story, but whatever.
It was clickbait on there,
Uh,
probably. 'Cause-
the deputy said that it wasn't safe because there was a dangerous road involved. I mean, it was dangerous,
Danger.
whatever that means, and that um he could have been abducted. And oh, I guess they live on a rural 16-acre compound that includes their house. Which contains an in-law suite for their dad, for the mother's dad, who's probably just as irresponsible and reckless as the mother.
Well,
Let's
yeah.
be fair. Um, he walked into our small town of 370 people.
Three,
I
yeah. It
mean,
was smaller than my hometown of Truckee. So, yeah, that's small.
wow.
Smaller than Fallon, Nevada.
You are really, I mean, it's a lucky this kid's still alive with a
It
mother like
is.
that. I mean, in all seriousness, I just think I don't understand stories like this. I just can't wrap my head around what kind of world we live in now where you arrest. I mean, I can understand having a conversation and being like, but arresting the mother for reckless conduct, I mean, I, clearly 370 people in the town, there isn't much to do, or they don't have a lot of cases to try or something. Like, I don't know what the deal is, but
Yeah, it makes me wonder what the incentive structure is for the DA. I mean, we just went through a huge election with a former DA, but it does seem to me, without any real knowledge, but that doesn't stop most people from forming opinions, that the cursory idea that I have, nonetheless, is that we have perverse incentives for DAs to just, get scalps on their belt or whatever the right colloquialism is, put notches in their belt. I don't know, but basically just get as many prosecutions on file as possible so that they are in a good position for reelection and they look like someone who's protecting the children when they run for higher office, etc. So I think that might be part of the problem, but again, I'm just going off my gut.
yeah, I mean, this kind of segues into something you and I had talked about offline, is this idea that these are elected officials, these DAs, and which has been done this way for a long time, but it also lends itself to all kinds of just corruption and maybe corruption is the bad word, but just all kinds of bad decisions in order to garner votes based on whatever base you are. So you know, you just it just circumvents the whole idea of our justice system, which is to, you work with the judge and you prosecute cases that you think you can win, and where you think the person is actually guilty of something that is worth it, right? Like, because this isn't free. It's your and I taxpayer dollars that pay for these things in these cases, and pay for these people to be incarcerated when they are incarcerated. And let's be real, we can't even keep the people who are, I mean, actual criminals in jail. And so we're wasting time on things like this. I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, I think it's clear that somebody has a beef with someone in this whole thing. I mean, I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know if she's actually going to be, do any time, or what the deal is. It'll be interesting.
I laugh because I'm just picturing the scenario where you're in behind bars or she's behind bars and she's talking to other inmates. What are you in here for? Well, I killed my husband when he tried to beat me. What are you in here for? I was dealing crack. What are you in here for? My kid wandered into a dollar store
Yeah.
without my permission.
My 11-year-old. I
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe someone else knows, but I don't know. I think it's 12 that they're allowed to be. That's what the state has determined, to be on their own and out and about, which again is just completely foreign to me. I mean, I was a latchkey kid, I mean, we just came and go as we went. We got ourselves to school, like we had to get ourselves home from school.
Yeah. Feel free to go to Google Earth or whatever, but I mean, there were times when I just didn't want to get on the bus because I got picked on or whatever, where I would just walk down Glenshire Drive, t- all the way to Truckee, where my school was, and that was a long road and a potentially dangerous road. I remember telling a teacher one time, and she sort of chastised me, but she didn't put my mom in prison, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a good thing you didn't live in Fannin County,
right.
because, your mom would be in jail right now.
Right, right. Because kids be kids, man. And I would just go. I lived in a less urban environment than you did, but I would just go out into the woods and just forever. Sometimes just sleep there for the night. Sounds like I was Huckleberry Finn, but
Yeah, a little
I don't.
bit.
I don't think anybody does that anymore. I was in the Big Brother, Little Brother program, whatever that's called, of Northern Nevada, and on one excursion, I took the kid to my hometown and to the subdivision where I grew up, and we went in the backwoods and rode our bikes. There was nobody there, and then for old time's sake or whatever, we rode our bikes to the general store that I used to go to all the time as a kid and would scrounge for quarters and whatnot,
Yeah.
go there and buy an ice cream or a burrito or whatever. And I didn't see any kids riding their bikes even on the streets. And this was the middle of the summer. It seemed crazy to quote Bob Dylan, who I might not be quoting right because I'm terrible with music lyrics, but times are changing. Uh,
Times are a changing.
I did want to hit a couple technology points in that story. It said something about her
Oh
safety
yeah.
plan, and there part of the safety plan was not only this equally reckless, I'm sure, mother-in-law agreeing to watch this hoodlum when she's not around, but also agreeing to put some sort of tracking device, as though your phone isn't already a giant tracking device, but a tracking app on the phone for the kid. And so the assumption is that either A, the kid already has a phone, or the state is basically saying, if you don't already have a phone for your 11-year-old, you're responsible if they don't. And
Yeah.
and that brings up
Yeah.
a whole slate of issues. As a current educator person, the phone in the classroom is my nemesis. So I would prefer 11-year-olds don't have phones, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of like a tracking app, or I mean, I guess we should just start chipping them. We just chip them like a dog, and then if anybody finds them, They can just take them to the law enforcement and they can scan them and find out who the reckless parent is and let them get loose, you know? I
Well,
mean,
the other great idea is, Mr. Musk, Elon, because we're so close, he may very well be in a position as the patriot that he is to put a chip in these kids' brains. Maybe if a kid doesn't obey, they can volunteer for some experiments and put a chip in their brain. Maybe it's easier to not only track them, but, you know, for lack of a better word, control them.
and added benefit, they can play video games with their minds.
Boom! It's a winner. Mic drop. That's yeah. Mr. Musk, if you're listening, let's go for it. Uh,
Genius. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every kid's in. Like, you got a faster reaction time. I mean, according to the guy who has one of those implants in there, he's really enjoying the video game experience.
oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how good he is or anything. I haven't played against him, so it would be interesting. I don't know if he's playing Call of Duty or what his deal is, but if you're out there, hit us up with your handle, man, and we'll play some Hell Let Loose or something, and we'll see how good you are, man.
And then in this dark, well, this Black Mirror dystopian novel that we're writing, I think the other technology issue that's sort of lurking in the background is the surveillance state, because all of this goes away if you're just, you have security cameras and whatnot on you, cameras in the woods, cameras in the city, cameras everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in your
Big
home.
Brother.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you got to put them in the home. I mean, we don't
Oh,
want people
obviously, yeah.
doing, yeah, crazy stuff in there. Like,
Yeah,
so
it's illegal to have cameras in the classroom. But I don't see why. Put the cameras in the classroom too. Hold those
I
teachers.
don't know why that's illegal. That seems stupid. Like, you have all these school shootings, you could have live footage of it. Like, you're not going to stop
Pay-per-view.
anything because it's going to
Uh,
be too late, but you could have live footage of it at least.
right.
Know where they are once the shooting starts,
Well,
you
before
know.
becoming a quasi-educator, when I worked for a bank and I was QA'd to death, quality assurance to death, mostly over the phone, where somebody would listen to a call and then score you on this or that, including the tone of your voice. Where one time they even told me, next time try not to sound like Kermit the Frog. So that's how it
That's
tends.
good feedback. I
It is.
mean,
It is.
that is good feedback.
There's a cop in my neighborhood that
Did you did
Kermit the
you did you say, well, thank you. That is great feedback. I will try that.
I should have taken it as a compliment because, like I was saying, there's a
He's
cop.
adored by millions, probably
It is.
more
He's
than
a
millions,
beloved figure.
hundreds of millions.
Yeah, hundreds of millions. This cop in my neighborhood will go to the little duck pond park thing where I live, and well, I live near the park, not in the park. Anyway, we'll stop and give pull over, and he gets out the Kermit the Frog doll and he gives it to some random kid playing in the playground.
There you go. See
Yeah,
that? It's
and
adored. Like, what a
adored.
better compliment you couldn't have got than.
Better.
I don't know why they would want you to not sound like Kermit the Frog. Like,
I
people
don't.
trust Kermit the Frog.
Don't Miss Piggy. I can't even do the impression. Maybe I just naturally sound like Kermit the Frog, I suppose. But uh, that being said, my fantasy at the time was to hold everyone to the same scrutiny and accountability, including school teachers. So you have a camera on them, the parents can get a report and see how their kid's being taught. And honestly, I think that probably would cut down on a lot of misconduct by these hoodlums in the classroom. But it does beg the question, do we really, 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 in all seriousness, need to be so risk avoidant adverse, so risk adverse that we have a camera on everything, a tracking device on everything. We can't give any kind of latitude to parents. Nobody in their right mind is talking about getting rid of Child Protective Services, CPS, or whatever. But there's got to be a line where we delineate where on a need to basis when the state steps in, and for the most part. there's a case study. I think it's the best case study. And again, I did next to no research on this, but I did find a Wikipedia article. And if I really, 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 really cared, I would find the sources for the Wikipedia article, but I'm not writing a paper. But there's a Wikipedia article about kibbutzes in Israel where they went to the extreme that I was joking about with the military schools. And I think it's something that's actually in the Communist Manifesto, the idea that parents how taking for responsibility for the child is sort of a bourgeoisie thing or something along those lines. So a lot of these kibbutzes that were adjacent to that kind of concept, even if Marxism is antithetical to religion. But that being beside the point, there was this idea that when you had a kid in a lot of the first kibbutzes, the kid didn't really belong to the parents. The parents could go and visit, but the school took primary responsibility for the child. And it was sort of a triangle. There was the parents to some degree, there was the school, and then there was the whole community. And it was a disaster. The kids, the boys and girls all grew up together, and so they felt that these other girls that would ordinarily just be the girl next door were now like their sister. And, they weren't into that kind of thing. So they're like, oh no, I can't date her.
Oh,
She's
I thought you were going to tell me it integrated into this Lord of the Flies thing.
No, it didn't really, it wasn't a Lord of the Flies thing. But there is an interesting nuance with that. But before I go down that rabbit hole, no, it wasn't Lord of the Flies. It was just the kids, there was no procreation, so it was really bad as far as keeping the kibbutz going. And in that same vein, they left. It was, for lack of a better word, a shitty experience not having the mom and dad, around and a closer relationship with the people that could only visit you and whatever else, whatever other variables were at place, resulted in these kids just leaving after they graduated whatever high school is in a kibbutz in Israel. They would just leave and not come back. So the communities could not sustain themselves. So suffice to say, for a variety of reasons, almost no kibbutz does that anymore. Parents are allowed to just be parents. It seems like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing in this, right? Is that we're just taking away the independence of our children, and they're becoming, I don't know, there's this neurotic kind of like way that you can become from something like this, where you're constantly watched, you're constantly told what to do. You end up without any kind of independence. And it just doesn't happen like this in other countries. I've been reading some different articles about this kind of idea in parenting, and if you talk to parents that live abroad and then come back to the US, the way that they parent is a lot different than how we parent in America. And a lot of it has to do with independence and allowing the children to do things like go trick or treating when they're 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and like empowering them, giving them the tools to make good decisions, and so that they learn how to navigate life and learn how to navigate and evaluate situations on their own without someone constantly telling them how to do it. And I think that's really a big thing you miss out in this kind of idea where they're not and maybe this has something to do with why children seem to, or young adults seem to be so immature these days, and spend more time at home. I mean, I don't know what it is. And we know this is a statistic, right? Where more and more children are staying at home longer and longer. I couldn't wait to get out, like personally, and that's just not the sentiment anymore. And I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to go do things on my own. And I was terrible at it, but I at least did it, you know.
yeah, yeah, I think that this also just that thesis anyway also segues back to, just a general theme of the specter of education reform, because so much of what happens in education is really where children are raised today anyway. I remember
Hmm.
uh, not too long ago, I remember thinking that I had some magical idea that would reform education, and I had noticed that they have a lot of these credit recovery programs at the high school level anyway, for kids where if they just screw around or whatever, don't do their coursework, they can literally just get into this credit recovery program and just do the entire course on
Hmm.
their computer, which is something they could literally just do at home. Plus, they have work study where they can get credit for having a job. And I was speaking to two high school age students. And I said, why not just combine those two things, skip the screwing around, and just do everything online and then have a job, get credit for that, potentially do some sort of internship. And both the kids said, "Oh yeah, 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 that stuff exists. We just choose not to do it."
Do they say why they chose not to do it?
They didn't. I should have asked. I felt a little awkward. I just said I would have done that. I hated high school. I hated it. But regardless,
Yeah, when I was in high school, we had OWE, which you could get like 6 credits or something is what you could get for that. It was outside work experience. So you had to have a job and then but you still had to go to a class every day and they taught you things like writing a resume, writing a cover letter, how to
right.
present yourself in an interview, doing your finances, like just all kinds of like life things that don't seem to be part of the world anymore. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I've been. It's interesting. I've interviewed and looked for a lot of entry level technicians, and
Mhm.
some of these, I would just say most of these resumes are just not very good. I'll
Uh,
just put it that way.
really?
Not very good. They're not interested in writing a cover letter. Um, Phone skills are really bad, of course. I mean, and not that that's super necessary, but being able to talk to somebody it's important, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that at the high school level, if I had my magic wand, the program that I suggested or something like that would be the standard model where it's more about, just going out and getting a job, getting into some kind of internship or apprenticeship, a fellowship if you really want to do an arts oriented thing, something where you're working with some mentors and you do a curriculum that's centered around what you kind of think you might want to do in the future and just spitballing here, but maybe we implement a system where kids aren't told that whatever decision you make when you're 16, 17 years old is basically your fate for the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah.
Might be
Yes.
the all right
It
idea.
is it is not the end of the world.
It is. Well, and there's another thing. I mean, obviously, below the high school level, independence of the older students notwithstanding, there's a lot of just babysitting going on. I'm afraid to say. As a substitute teacher, I've done the elementary classes, and as I've told you before, there's only like two classes where the kids actually learn anything when they do a sort of language arts thing and a math thing. And even then, if it's a really good school, you have like five kids that are paying attention. If it's a school in a not a bad school, not bad kids, but a school in a neighborhood where a lot of people don't own their own home, let's say, then you might have three kids if you're lucky that are paying attention, and the rest of it is just supervised play. And I think the idea is that while mom and dad are out working, they got to do something with their kids. Not everyone has the luxury of working from home, or not everyone can afford to send their kids to daycare. So that serves a big function as well. But on the older side of things, again, independence notwithstanding, there's a social component. I never went to football games or did any of that when I was in high school, but in my experience working in education before I was working at a high school, but not quite as a teacher. I did things like go to their football games and their musicals and that sort of thing. And what I noticed as a strange dynamic was that there were kids that like theater kids or whatever clique they were in who which would go to these games but not actually watch the game. It was just a social event.
Yeah,
And there's just so
yeah.
much about the high school experience for these kids, regardless of whether I'm in a neighborhood that's well-to-do or a neighborhood that's not so much, is that it's the focal point of their social lives. So I think the problem with my little reform is where are the kids going to get their socialization? And
Well, I mean, I think that this is, to back to the Bob Dylan song, "The Times Are a Changin'." I think that the education system also needs to change. And we've kind of just mandated this idea that you go to primary school and you graduate from high school and then you go to college, and not a lot of kids want to go to college anymore for good reason because degrees aren't worth very much anymore. And, so they just kind of shuffle the kids through. And I saw this with my own daughter. They just shuffled her through. I remember having a conversation. Oh man, she must have been in second grade, maybe no, maybe third or fourth grade, but she wasn't performing up to par with the rest of the students, and she
okay.
was pretty far behind. And we tried tutors and working with her, and she was just she her because of her birthday, she was younger than all the other kids, and so
Oh,
really she probably should have been a grade behind anyways.
hmm.
And so I remember telling the teachers, like, well, why don't we just hold her back a year? Like, and we'll have her repeat this year, and then she can catch up, and she probably has a better chance of success.
Right.
And they were just like, no, absolutely not. We don't hold anyone back anymore. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, she's not performing, like, and so they just kind of molded, like you were talking about, molded the system to push her through and pass her, and that's what they ended up doing. And she ended up graduating high school and not very, not under the standards that I had graduated under. And then I believe colleges kind of do the same thing now. I mean, you and I have discussed this quite a bit offline, is that I just think that, college education is the 13th grade now. They're just
Yeah.
pushing you through. They really dumbed it down. It's very, very easy to get a college education with minimal effort. I went to Purdue Global Online, which is an online degree from Purdue, which is a very well-known university, and they'll hate me for this, but I don't care. It was not very difficult. I, you know, did not try very hard to graduate with a 3.14. Um, I just and why? Why do we still think that every child needs to go to college? Like, push them into the trades, like, find out what they want to do. It's not the end of the world. They might want to change their mind later. Maybe they don't want to figure it all out at 16 years old.
Yeah, and there's no perfect solution. As someone who's not necessarily great at clerical stuff per se and doesn't have the best hand-eye coordination, uh, that's still would leave me having to work a little bit harder than the next guy. But I think it would be a better system that it seems like we're moving towards right now, where we do push more kids into the trade schools and less of this idea that everyone has to go to college. And I think that's good. I think that's a really good thing. But there's still going to be some opportunities to help other kids, find their way. And it won't be a perfect solution, but I think that would certainly be better than what is the status quo today.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what lends credence to this kind of thing that has been, that come full circle to the election,
Yeah.
this Project 2025, where, they're talking about eliminating the Department of Education. I mean, I'm loosely saying that. Don't chastise me, everyone, all nine of you.
Right.
But I'm just, you know, we do probably need some education reform. We do need to change some of these things, and is a wholesale destruction of the Department of Education the answer? I don't know. Maybe, maybe. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think I'm a geologic conservative now that I'm taking geology. So I think the problem is, for the most part, once you implement something like the Department of Education that's so intricately tied to so much of our society and how we run schools, it would just create chaos by trying to get rid of that, which is the same reason why ideas on the far left, like, going full communist would never work because it's a disaster when you do, I think that's what you call de-Baathization, where, in Iraq, they got rid of all the institutions that ran things, the Baathists that were run by the
Mhm.
Baathist Party. Maybe that's not what de-Baathization is, but I'm going to say it is. It was a
We're gonna
disaster.
go with it.
Yeah, we're going to go with it. It's a disaster when you tear apart institutions and you don't have a plan B to seamlessly take over. So the Republican Party has been trying to get rid of the Department of Education for a long time, at least since Reagan. So I'm betting it's still going to be around, but if there's a 2% risk of that kind of chaos that is just not functional, I don't think it's worth it, which was the reason why I, as someone who's more fiscally conservative and socially liberal and not really tied to either of the two parties, voted the way I did. But 53% of America disagreed with me. And, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
It is. Well, it looks like we are just about out of time here. I mean, we've accomplished nothing.